Hey everyone, Sooooo Panda here, and this has probably been my most requested video. Basically doing a video on Dreya, on all of the life loss centers, how much investment do they need, how good is the team, how future-proof is the team, and all that good stuff. And so that's basically what we're going to be doing today. Obviously going through Dreya's kit first. We're going to be talking about how she shines not only in the composition, but also how she works if you were to use her in a non-life loss composition. Now, I will say though, that if you're getting Dreya, if you have gotten Dreya, I would definitely recommend looking to build the full life loss composition down the road. You don't need to do it immediately, but I would highly recommend start slowly working on it. Because her full potential is definitely reached there, and when she reaches her full potential, it's quite crazy. Now, I've done quite a bit of testing with her in life loss composition and without it. I've also done a bit of testing only using some of the life loss centers. And I can safely say that, yeah, you don't need all of them at P3 for her to work effectively. But we'll get to that later. For now, let's go through her kit, which basically starts with her info, saying that whenever allied units deal life loss damage, Dreya will gain 1 M value, up to 5 M values per second. When she reaches 80, she'll enter the corruption state. She'll gain 8% attack, and she'll start rapidly depleting her M value. When the M value reaches 0, her corruption state will end. It's fairly straightforward. What's not listed here though as well is that some of her skills will actually change the property if she's in the corruption state, and also she herself is also considered an allied unit, so she can enter it by herself. However, you do need 80 life loss ticks for it to enter there, but it is possible. Now, her normal attack isn't anything spectacular, it's just a single attack that has a pretty mediocre scaling. However, in the corruption state, it is actually a fairly respectable damage tool, because not only is it a double attack, it also has respectable scaling here, going up to 134, I believe, yes. Now, for now, here in the early stages of having Dreya, you can safely ignore this. However, when we start getting to TOA, this is starting to be something that is worthwhile investing in to get that extra bit of damage. However, the bulk of her damage is definitely within her ultimate, which is a 31 cost, 1 core break, 3x3 AoE dealing 1300% physical damage. That's a lot of things, but this is a high multiplier on ultimate. Not only that, it also resets all of the life loss effects that are carried by enemies. This is obviously is really nice, just due to the sheer range of it. You can basically almost think of this as a Shackle Zero Irene nuke. However, it's really interesting when she gets in the corruption state, because nothing really changes except that she also starts now dealing the total damage the life loss effects the target had would have dealt. So she resets all of the life loss effects, and then she also deals whatever how much they would have dealt. So that's obviously going to be quite a bit of damage, but on lower investment teams, it's actually not super substantial, in the sense that you do not need to worry too much whether or not she is in the corruption state when using her ultimate. But it is obviously a nice bonus that if you can use it while she is there. For her passive one, this is basically just her own life loss triggering effect. She just afflicts it in her attack range every 8 seconds, or every 8 attack, sorry. So it's quite nice. Her scaling on it is really high, definitely something to note here. Almost being a 100% attack percentage for 10 seconds. Yeah, this is really strong. It's a bit, I would say, lower priority though if you are... I mean, this is basically equal priority to a passive 2, which is just getting the attack boost straight up, and then reducing the intervals of life loss damage effects. Now, in a full life loss composition, this is obviously really important. However, if you are using her without those supports, you can actually safely deprioritize her passive 1 and passive 4, or passive 2, sorry, skill 4. Her priority here should definitely be her ultimate, passive 1 equals passive 2, and then her normal attacks. So I'll always take ultimate first. Because not only is the ultimate just the bulk of her damage, but it also works without the full reliance on her other life loss centers. For her main intensify, she basically just deals 6% more damage against enemies who has life loss. So the more life loss affected on the enemy, the more additional damage Dreya has against them. If you have Shackle 1, the 6% turns into a 10%, which is quite substantial. And I would definitely recommend getting it if you're like really interested in Dreya and you're really interested in the life loss composition. It's quite a substantial increase. However, if you are free to play, I would definitely just leave Dreya at Shackle 0. She functions perfectly fine there, and it's quite respectable even without her full composition there. Now, to talk about some of the other... Actually, no, I forgot the exclusive requirement. The exclusive requirement of Dreya is something that I think a few people has been confused about. Basically, up front, right off the bat, you gain 10% more life loss damage. This is obviously nice, but the more interesting thing here is the ultimates that you gain. The first ultimate is a 3x3 area that you basically choose on a tile, and in that 3x3 area then, Dreya will kind of remember all of the life loss effects that were there when you used it. Essentially think of this as she's copying those effects. Now, the next ultimate she then gets is that she then is allowing herself to apply all of those copied effects map wide. So all enemies on the field would then just suddenly have all of those life loss effects. And that's basically it. The really interesting thing about this though is that you can only use it twice. Because this does something for Dreya. In a full composition, this allows Dreya to wave clear. Because again, it's a map wide ability. However, that means that it's really strong in BFL, but in something like Pit, it actually does not get the job done because she can't actually be used as a full wave clear there. She can only be used for like 2 waves, where, I mean, usually in Pit you will clear like 20 waves or something. So it definitely isn't super great there, but really, really strong in something like BFL. Okay, so that's basically Dreya. You can safely leave that exclusive combat at 1, by the way. Exclusive combat level 3 on that one is definitely something that you need to consider like way down the line. Okay, talking about the other life loss sinners now. So Dreya, we know she applies her life loss every 8 normal attack, and she also reduces the tick rate of the life loss effects. So if something like Sumire would normally deal her life loss effects, let's see, it's 1 every 8 seconds, or 1 every second for 8 seconds. This would instead go from 8 ticks to 10 ticks in total. So she would be dealing her 76% of her attack 10 times instead for that full duration. And that obviously cycles back into Dreya's ability to deal all of the life loss damage that would have been had in her Corruption State ultimate. So that's something to keep in mind. There's going to be a lot of those kind of interactions at play here. But that's how Sumire's effect kind of interacts with Dreya there. Now, in order for Sumire to apply her effect, you need to just basically wait every 16 seconds, which is definitely really, really annoying. And I would say that probably Sumire is the only one who is kind of dependent on shackles for like the supportive life loss centers. Which one you definitely want is the Shackle 2 here, where every attack reduces the cooldown of that passive 1 by 1 second. In terms of the other skills, you can actually safely leave them at 1. Even the passive 1 you can technically leave at 1 for Sumire. It's not really important how much damage she is dealing with it. I mean, that is definitely a nice bonus. What's more important is just that she applies the bleed so that Dreya can get the damage bonus against the target. Otherwise, the Social Crime Brand of Sumire is also quite nice because it increases the damage of all life loss effects on the field, which then again cycles back into Dreya's ability to reduce the number of time it takes between each life loss tick, her ability to deal all of the damage the life loss would have done immediately, right? So yeah, definitely something that you would look to Exclusive Crime Brand level 3 later on, but I think Sumire is definitely one that you can safely leave at 1111 P240. Ideally, you would definitely do probably P3 at some point and then get the Scrum Brand, but for now, I think if you're looking to low invest, 1111 P240 is where you should park Sumire. Levy, however, does require a bit more, and I think he's one of the more important aspects of the composition. So the way Levy works is that he, in order to apply bleed, or imply life loss. Basically, bleed and life loss is the same thing. He just needs to take damage. This is really easy for him to do. His skills offers magic resistance, which, as you know, his ultimate boosts. And this is actually one of the more potent, I would say, life loss effects. Because this is actually skills offers magic resistance, which he can easily get quite high. But yeah, he basically just needs to take damage. The other effect that's really nice here is his passive 2, because this one makes it so that all the enemies within the 3x3 suffers way more life loss damage. Like that is a 63% increase in damage taken from life loss effects. Again, that ties into the Sumire Mixed Crown Brand, it ties into the Dreya Ultimate in Corruption State. So this is a really good skill to level up. Not only that, we have Levy's Crown Brand, which is fair trade, which then also states that whenever Levy deals damage to an enemy, for each life loss effect that they have, they take 5% more damage. So if you have the full composition here, this is 20% damage increase on that target. So yeah. And again, I need to like reiterate this a couple of times now, but like again, taking more damage, boosting the amount of life loss damage dealt, all of that ties into the Dreya Ultimate Corruption State part of it. So you can start seeing how some of these interactions go up to produce crazy amounts of numbers. For Levy, I would definitely recommend you get him P3. Unfortunately, I think getting these scrum is just too much to pass up on. However, it is possible to do so. Also, he is not shackle dependent at all, so you can safely keep using him at shackle 0 as I have. Pepper is probably the most skippable one. In terms of how she applies her life loss, she basically just needs to attack 6 times. It's not super difficult and it's actually fairly reliable. Not as much so as Levy's though. But it's a really low dealing life loss effect. Not only does she have B rank sinner stats, so like 550 attack here, but it also only lasts for 8 seconds, where something like Levy lasts for 12 seconds. None of her other skills are super interesting. You don't need to actually level them. Don't look at mine and go, oh, I should also level all her skills. No, you can safely keep this at 1111 if you're using Pepper. You can safely also keep her at P240 because her exclusive command brand, while it is super useful, as this can basically reduce an enemy's defense by 32%. Just adding something like a Nox on the team is also going to be having similar effects, while also helping out quite tremendously with damage. Now obviously it is quite expensive to use Nox alongside this full composition because it is already using 4 sinners, 2 of which are enabled to core break, and 1 of which you don't want to core break with, right, because you want her to be the main damage source. So you want her ultimates to be hit while stuff is core broken. However, with the way Levy works, we can actually quite afford it. But yeah, you can safely keep Pepper at P240 for now, and at 11111. So yeah, just to reiterate, Dreya you should always obviously try and full max invest in, like the full 1999 or 1777. For Levy, I would definitely say P3, at least Social Crime Band 1, and then go at least, I'll say at least 117, and depending on whether the passive 2 should be 1 or 7, depends on how much you invested in, like Sumire for instance, right? If your Sumire is 1111, you can leave this passive 2 as 1111 as well. However, if you actually did end up investing a bit in your Sumire, so that she is 1171, I would say this gains a lot more value there. However, Levy should definitely have 11. Well, actually, you can actually kind of ignore this one as well now, think about it. Yeah, this isn't huge, but it's nice. Yeah, I would say, yeah, he can actually also be 1111 and just get him exclusive combat 1, for sure. Actually, probably the more important thing is definitely, okay, yeah, well, actually, scratch that. 1117 is what Levy should be. Yeah, because then you can lean into the Draya much more. And of course, exclusive combat 1. Yeah, sorry, I got some of my things mixed up there. Now, in terms of how to use the exclusive crown brand that we talked about as well, I'm basically going to demonstrate that here. So we see that now the maiden has hit Levy. So right now, if I were to use Dreya's brand, I have now basically snapshot that Levy bleed on Maiden. So even now as Pepper applies her bleed, you'll see that when I use Dreya's Sumire again now, and I basically copy that Levy bleed, the slime will not get the Pepper effect, only the Levy. So, see, you see there's only one debuff on the slime there, because that's the one they copied, is the Levy one. Now currently, Maiden does have Pepper, Levy, and Dreya now. So if I were to use the Sumire again, I would copy those 3 abilities, like so. So now I have Dreya, Levy, and Pepper basically stored in Sumire. I will then apply those map-wise, and you can see now the slime's got 2 more, which is basically the Pepper effect and the Dreya effect that they didn't have before. Alright, I think that basically is all of the kits, how they interact. Now the question is, and obviously also how much investment you need into them, right? Now the question is then, how good is the composition? Well, the composition in its entirety, basically what I have here, is really, really strong. This can easily clear any BFL that we have, except of course for Void Puppet, sorry. And it's definitely really, really strong in TOA. Because in TOA you can really, really maximize the amount of damage that all of your life loss abilities are doing. Now, what if you were to use this team without the life loss? How would it be? How's Dreya on her own? And I tested this quite a bit. And basically my verdict is that she is very similar to something like a Langley. A Shackle Zero Langley, that is. Dreya and Langley are incredibly similar as Shackle Zero. Their ultimates are similarly cost. They have similar, they basically have the exact same range, or like the area affecting, and they both deal 1 core damage. Now obviously Dreya is a bit more, like she deals 1 core break to everything that's in that area, while Langley only deals it to 1. But what basically makes me say that they're so similar is that, well, they're both really centered around, well, as I said, Dreya is really centered around her ultimate, and what that allows her to do is basically function as a supportive boss killer or supportive wave clearer. And like you basically select one part of the map where you say these enemies are super hard to deal with, so I'm gonna Dreya ultimate this area here. I'm gonna do 1 core damage to everything, and I'm going to deal a good amount of damage. That's similar to how you usually use Langley in those cases, right? Where you use her casualty and then you have her passive 2 basically deal with some of these more annoying chunks of enemies. In that sense, they're both kind of supportive wave clearers. However, where it really sets them apart is that Dreya is also able to function more as a supportive boss killer. I'm actually reluctant to call her a main boss killer because you can definitely do it, but Dreya has one big weakness when it comes to boss killing, and that is that she's empower dependent. When you think about boss killers for physical damage, obviously Darren comes up, right? But Darren is a team on her own. We're not going to talk about her. We have stuff like Priscilla, we have stuff like Mess, we have stuff like Zoya. And yes, all of these are ultimate dependent, but once you cast the first ultimate, you do not need to recast it ever again. That first ultimate will typically last you through the entire stage. For Dreya, you need to ultimate, then empower, then ultimate, then empower, then ultimate, right? And even with the skill damage buff that is currently in BFL, I find that Dreya on her own is quite comparable to some of her adversaries. So I would definitely say that if you want to use the Dreya alone, you should probably still add another dedicated boss killer and just use Dreya more in a supportive role, where she focuses more on clearing really annoying chunks of enemies, or just assisting with that last bit of boss damage that you need, and potentially that extra core break that you might need. In terms of the future proofing of this team and how good it will become in the common content, well, currently in PCN we have 4 kinds of endgames basically. We have the BFL endgame, we have New Pit, we have TOA, and we have Mania training / like story, that kind of stuff. And they all kind of reward different things. BFL is the most mixed bag of it all. Kind of you want a bit of wave clear, you kind of want a bit of immediate damage, you want a bit of utility. And it's really where Dreya is mostly at home, I would say, by herself. In a full composition, she still functions excellent in BFL, but TOA is really where she's going to be shining there, because the life loss effect damage is just going to ramp up to ridiculous amounts. In New Pit, however, she does have a big weakness, and that is this Execute Command of hers, that this technically allows her to wave clear, and Ultimate technically allows her to wave clear, but they are really expensive tools. What you really want in Pit is easily cyclable wave clearing, right? You want something like Serpent Spin, you want something like Nox just for 28 seconds, she will completely decimate entire waves, and you can re-empower her for a second ultimate for another 28 seconds. You want something with a low ultimate cost that you can just keep spamming out, something like maybe Serpent in some cases. And the Social Crown Brain usage being limited to 2 usages only on the Dreya is really what brings her down here. Because what she's essentially becoming in that context is a boss killer that is reliant on having 3 additional units with her, which in most cases in the New Pit stages you can't actually like afford. So yeah, not super great in New Pit. I don't think she will ever really be super great in the New Pit, but I definitely consider her like T0 basically for TOA, and I also consider T0 for BFL if in her own full composition. Without that, she's probably hovering around like a tier 1.5, tier like almost like maybe 2, because just of the nature of the supportive element of her kit. In Mania training, I mean, it's not a whole lot to say here. It has some of the similar weaknesses as in Pit, New Pit, where like you keep switching targets so that you never actually get to fully stack your life loss effects on like a single target and really have it just ramp up to the ridiculous amount. The reason why it completely works in BFL, right, is because we only have 3 waves basically. We have 2 waves where like there's a lot of ads, and we usually have a boss wave. That means that her Instagram being tied to 2 usages is not like that bad, right? Because we can use it on both of those waves and we can just completely clear them out. So yeah, that's basically gonna be my thoughts. I would say though that you can also, like when I say full composition, right, for her, I definitely mean Dreya, Levy, Sumire, and Pepper. But I do think in some cases that if you really hate Pepper, you can just use Sumire and Levy, and you'll still have excellent results. Now, in case you're wondering how much she usually does with just having one of those around, like either Levy or Sumire, I would say that it's about equivalent to adding in an Amper, like a universal Amper, like I think Enfer or something like that. Which I think I would then slightly favor towards something like the Enfer, the Hamel, or whatever, because they also help over the other sinners on your team. Now, if you're pretty strict about this and you only want to invest in one sinner, Sumire is the better choice, because she features 2 core breaks and she actually deals respectable damage. Right, my Sumire deals like 100 in K. Just her and Dreya. The Sumire will deal about 100k. And that's pretty substantial. That basically makes it so that Sumire can be considered a supportive wave clear, a supportive boss killer, and Dreya can do the other part of the supportive boss killing needs that you have. But yeah, my recommendation: at least Levy P3, at least Sumire P2, and Pepper can kind of be dumped entirely, or she should be P2 as well. I think that's going to be it. I'm sorry, this is kind of a scuffed setup. I'm not able to do any editing or anything like that. But please, if you do have questions at all that need answering, just throw them in the comment section. I'll try and get to them. Alright, I hope this kind of explained how Dreya works and how I feel about her. Definitely really strong. And I wish people good luck on having rolled her or rolling her. Alright, see you guys.